I'm Matthias Pincher, composer, conductor, and currently the directeur musical of the Ensemble Intercontemporain in Paris.
Hello, I'm Bernhard Gander. I'm a composer, a so-called classical composer. I'm from Austria, living in Vienna, and now I'm enjoying to be here for the rehearsals and the concert for my new piece, Soaring Souls System, with the Ensemble Intercontemporain.
Je suis Alain Billard, clarinette basse solo de l'Ensemble Intercontemporain depuis 1995. Et depuis 26 ans, je crée énormément de pièces. Je ne sais pas, je dois être plus de 3000 pièces déjà créées. Donc c'est quelque chose qui est pour moi vital.
My name is Aureliano Cattaneo and I'm a composer. I was born in Italy, but quite soon I moved to Spain, where I live since many years.
Je m'appelle Valéria Kafelnikov, je suis harpiste à l'Ensemble Intercontemporain depuis près de 2 ans. Et aujourd'hui nous allons parler de la pièce de Marc-André pour harpe et ensemble qui s'appelle Wohin. Cette pièce est tout à fait particulière dans le répertoire car elle utilise non pas simplement la harpe telle qu'on la connaît, mais une sorte de dispositif d'installation autour de l'instrument que nous avons cherché ensemble, Marc-André et moi-même. Nous sommes partis d'une discussion tout à fait informelle sur les souhaits qu'on pouvait avoir l'un et l'autre pour cette nouvelle œuvre. Nous nous sommes rencontrés à Donaueschingen il y a 2 ans et nous avons parlé beaucoup de ce projet. Et je lui fais part de mon souhait d'augmenter la harpe par le fait que les cordes ne soient pas uniquement reliées à l'instrument lui-même, donc sortent du plan de cordes habituel, et soient reliées à d'autres choses, à d'autres instruments éventuellement. Il a été très sensible à mon souhait et nous avons entrepris une recherche commune. C'est-à-dire que nous nous sommes vus pendant des après-midi entières, nous avons bricolé, nous avons épluché tout ce qu'il y avait au stockage d'instruments bizarres, d'instruments inhabituels. Et nous sommes arrivés à ce set actuel qui est une harpe avec une corde qui part de chaque côté et qui est reliée à un instrument de percussion. Un timbre d'un côté, un gong de l'autre. Donc ces cordes qui relient la harpe aux instruments de percussion sont en elles-mêmes des espaces sonores très riches qu'il a fallu explorer. On a pensé à différents modes de jeu. Évidemment, il a fallu se poser la question de la notation. Comment noter cette chose qui n'est pas instrumentale vraiment, qui fait partie d'un univers qui n'est habituellement pas couché sur papier. Il a fallu se poser la question des possibilités et des impossibilités, bien sûr. Donc ça a été toute une exploration en commun qui nous a à la fois rapprochés et qui à la fois nous a permis à tous les deux de s'exprimer dans des souhaits assez intimes en fait. Évidemment, là, nous sommes dans un processus de création. Là, je me sens vraiment à ma juste place parce qu'à la fois, je peux offrir mon expertise et je peux donner des idées, je peux aider le créateur à accoucher de ses idées, de son œuvre. Mais la création, au sens large, ne prend pas nécessairement cette forme. C'est-à-dire que le compositeur peut aussi avoir un désir fort de quelque chose et l'interprète, voilà, simplement mettre des moyens à disposition, mais pas aller plus loin. Là, pour ce projet-là en particulier, nous avons été vraiment au bout d'un processus et ça a été extrêmement fructueux et très réjouissant pour moi.
I did not choose to become a composer. I think it more or less happened to me. I was learning guitar, saxophone, drums, keyboards when I was 12, 13 years old. and we had a small rock band. We tried to make our own songs, but not having in mind that we are composing. We just did it because maybe at this time I even didn't know the term what a composer is. And afterwards, when I studied piano, it more or less became sure for me that I want to keep this profession or passion. The piece which will be premiered tomorrow was a commission by the Ensemble Intercontemporain, and I was asked to write to the topic of Prometheus. And for me, the topic of Prometheus is fire. Fire brings life, but also brings death. And I tried in my piece to tell a story where bodies are already at the purgatory. They are waiting to be burned. Then they are burned in the purgatory, and the souls became free from the body and they are ascending to the heaven. I'm very influenced by heavy metal. I started to listen to metal when I was 10 years. When I started to write music, I always wanted to integrate these elements, but I was not able to do it because it's a bit dangerous, because it cannot be transferred directly. I cannot tell an orchestra to play a riff of heavy metal because an orchestra works acoustically totally different than a distorted e-guitar. So these are just acoustically incidents. So I analyzed metal songs, and now I'm thinking in these terms. When I write a piece, I'm thinking of good bass lines, good riffs, good drum patterns, and a good main melody. Creation happens in every aspect of our life. When I want to cook something, I always wanted to cook something which smells good, which tastes good, and I didn't want to repeat the same meal every day. So one day I make some meat with these vegetables, the other day with another vegetable, and I think this process or this kind of creation is just the same as in music. I cannot write the same string quartet every day, and I cannot repeat my elements every day because it gets boring. I need some new flavors, some new elements, and that's the simple way of creation.
One of the most exciting elements of my artistic life is, without any doubt, the privilege to create, and honestly creating on so many levels. I'm responsible for the artistic planning of the ensemble, and it is definitely one of the most exciting elements, as I just said, to give commissions to composers that we appreciate. And of course, we know them and we follow them for many years, sometimes for decades or even longer, or we just discovered them. And we know a little bit about their aesthetic context and their world, their musical universe. But still, you don't know what you get. And this is just fantastic because it allows to really, us, the musicians, and me, the conductor, to jump into this cold water, which rather feels fresh. It doesn't scare us, but we just jump in and start feeling out where we are. And there's this beautiful word in French that does not really have a translation, which is la création. So this is always a very sensitive but a very powerful moment when, for the first time, and clearly for the second time, read through a new work and try to feel it out and how it stands. Then the other very exciting thing is that I have to make a program. So I have to create that patchwork of those works that we commission and put them together and anticipate and hope that it all falls in place. And sometimes that's really the case. Use the word avant-garde, which is to some extent absurd terminology because it's anyway coming from the whole realm of military. But you have to ask yourself, avant quoi? Is it nowadays a necessity or an obligation to try to find something that hasn't been done, that has not been heard? I think everything that we do nowadays is to really understand that music is always being presented in a new context once we relive it, once we re-articulate it. And that's the same with the Grand Partita that we're also playing this week. It is, every time it reappears as a completely brand new work for us, because different souls with different sentimental conditions, emotional conditions are re-breathing into the instruments and making it something new. So for me, it was always like, find a new context, work on alternative ideas how to present works. And that's, I think, it's challenging, but also very beautiful to see like one of these grand classics in our repertoire, like the Grand Partita, and look at it through the eyes of someone else. That's why I had the idea to ask Cattaneo if he could be interested to write interludes, intersections, rather interventions that look at the Grand Partita and how it sonically stands in music history and how we can look at it today with the new possibilities of sound productions that we have, with new instruments, with instruments that he invents. Like it's opening this rich emotional base of that specific Mozart piece and translates it into what we have today.
Piece that I wrote for this concert is quite special because I was asked to, especially to write a piece together with this work by Mozart as a Grand Partita for wind instruments. And I was asked to write a work that also was not only together with this piece, but in between this piece, because the Grand Partita is divided in 7 movements. So I was asked to write a piece that was in between this movement of Mozart. To do this special project, I wanted to start from a kind of concept because I listened to a Mozart piece after many years, and my first impression was to be in front of a piece that is very repetitive. The first listening was to be a kind of labyrinth of sounds, very rich, but again you were going back to the same point in some way. And this inspired me to do a piece playing with this idea of repetition, and also playing with the idea of to be inside another story. So I thought to use a text, to relate to a text, to a book. The book is Manuscrit trouvé à Saragosse by Jan Potocki. And it was written between the end of 18th century and the beginning of 19th centuries. We have a very different level of narration. We have the Gothic book, fantastic book, philosophic book. And this was very inspiring me because it was the idea of building one story inside another story. So I'm interested also in this kind of filterings between art, interpretation, reinterpretation. For me, it's a point, a start point to begin to think then the music material. If I need to work with a musician, it's because I already have some really clear idea of what I want. It's not to look for something, and then what is going on I use. It's kind of reverse. It's a moment of confirmation of what, or maybe error, of course, of what I imagine, the sound I imagine. But it's more an abstract process than concrete on the instruments.
C'est une pièce qui démontre et qui doit à tout moment être sensible, puisque nous sommes dans un sujet mythologique, on va dire, Prométhée, et quelque chose qui, pour tout ce qui est mythe, doit être réinventé ou réexpliqué. Je passe du son très doux, très soufflé, très venteux, au chaos total, qui est le cluster orchestral au milieu de la pièce. Pourquoi la création est vitale pour moi? Parce que c'est le seul moment où on doit être en contact avec le compositeur. Et le fait de créer nous fait découvrir, nous en tant qu'interprètes, des nouvelles choses instrumentales, très souvent que nous n'avons pas utilisées.
I think it's very important nowadays to completely detach ourselves from this desire to find something new, something that someone hasn't done before, because it's anyway not doable. So if someone, let's say, is trying to explore a certain multiphonic on a specific oboe type that hasn't been done before, how do we know that someone else in Japan or in Australia hasn't just found the same day the same multiphonic? So it's an abstract desire. And I would rather encourage composers, and encouraging myself at the same time, to dare to put things in a different context. Because if you think you have to create something completely new that has never been done before, I think you feel stuck. But that I apply that to myself. So in my role here in Paris to create programs, that's a wonderful opportunity for me to really try to be as sensitive as I can in feeling out those universes of those composer colleagues that I all cherish so much and I appreciate so much. And this is the wonderful thing to see how they approach each other or not. And it tells stories, and this is exactly this diversity that we're living nowadays on so many personal levels also. And I think it's great when all of a sudden this can equally be presented in an art form, because art is our life too at the same time, and it's always a mirror of our time, willingly or not. The time that we live in has an impact in what we write.